Welcome back to the Badass Literature Society, where badasses come together to rate and review novels recommended by you. Hi, I'm Michael.
And this is Barbara.
And this month we read Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn.
We did
Tracy
a switcheroo there.
did a
We
little
have to,
switcheroo,
yeah.
yes. Lauren needed to take the month off, so we pivoted so that we could still read the book she was excited about next month. Tracy Deonn is a writer and second-gen fangirl. She grew up in North Carolina, where she devoured fantasy books and Southern food in equal measure. After earning 2 degrees from UNC-CH, Tracy worked in live theater, video games, and K-12 education. When she's not writing, Tracy panels at SFF conventions, reads fanfic, arranges doggy playdates, and keeps an eye out for ginger-flavored everything. Barbara, do you want to tell us a little bit about the book?
Sure. This was originally published on November 8th of 2022. Genre is YA fantasy or urban fantasy. It is, depending on the book you have, 576 pages. And it currently has a 4.3 on Goodreads, 4.6 on Amazon, and a 4.3 on Fable. It has been nominated for the Locus Award for Young Adult in 2023, the Goodreads Choice Award for YA Fantasy and Science Fiction in 2022, the Lodestar Award in 2023, and has won the Ignite Award for Best Young Adult Novel in 2023. We think it's important for readers to know what, if any, representation is in the books we read. So for this book has main and supporting POC characters, main supporting LGBTQ plus characters, and main character with a disability.
And now, since Lauren's not here, I will give a brief synopsis of Bloodmarked. The shadows have risen, and the line is law. All Bree wanted was to uncover the truth behind her mother's death, so she infiltrated the Legendborn Order, a secret society descended from King Arthur's knights, only to discover her own ancestral power. Now Bree has become someone new, a medium, a Bloodcrafter, a Scion. But the ancient war between demons and the Order is rising to a deadly peak, and Nick, the Legendborn boy Bree fell in love with, has been kidnapped. Bree wants to fight, but the Regents who rule the Order won't let her. To them, she is an unknown girl with unheard-of power, and as the living anchor for the spell that preserves the Legendborn Cycle, she must be protected. When the Regents reveal they will do whatever it takes to hide the war, Bree and her friends must go on the run to rescue Nick themselves. But enemies are everywhere. Bree's powers are unpredictable and dangerous, and she can't escape her growing attraction to Selwyn, the mage, sworn to protect Nick until death. If Bree has any hope of saving herself and the people she loves, she must learn to control her powers from the ancestors who wielded them first without losing herself in the process. So, what did you think about Bloodmarked? And remember, no spoilers. But I will say, if you're listening to this podcast and you have not read Legendborn, there might be some spoilers for that, even in the no spoilers section of this.
There's no might be. There will be, because it's a continuation.
So maybe if you're interested in reading Legendborn, maybe you don't listen to this podcast and go back and listen to our review of Legendborn that Barbara and I did a couple years ago.
That would be silly of you to listen to a podcast, unless you just don't like to read and you just want to do that, I guess. Then
power to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying, it's just you're gonna get spoiled, you know.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But anyways, what did I think? I freaking loved it. Like, I could not put it down from the beginning. It's just so good. Like, I can't praise this book enough. I absolutely loved everything about it. The characters, the setting, the story, the plot, the just everything. I loved it. So 10 out of 10, no notes.
I mean, I gotta agree. I also loved it. Once I started, couldn't put it down. It's incredibly action-packed, pretty much from start to finish. Every chapter, or not, I shouldn't say every chapter, almost every chapter feels like it ends on like a cliffhanger, and you want to know what happens next. But then Tracy Deonn did it where you finish the chapter and you're like, okay, well, I have to keep reading. And you start the next chapter and it'd be somebody else's stories. Then you have to read 2 more chapters to get to figure. Anyway, it's very good. All the stories are interesting. The perspectives are all good. I really liked the book. I'm very excited to read the 3rd book that just came out also.
Perspective. There's only Bree's perspective.
I meant, sorry, as the story bounces around to different parts of the story.
Oh.
Bree is the only perspective, but sometimes it would like end a chapter and you'd want to know what happens next in that moment, and it would tell you about a different part of the story in the next chapter.
Did we read the same book?
We did. I can't talk about exactly what I mean because there's spoilers.
Okay, so when we get to the spoilers, we're gonna have to explain that because I'm a little lost. But anyways, go on.
So like always, we're not going to give our individual ratings right now. Got to wait till the end for that. But our group score for this one, unsurprisingly, was a 9.25 out of 10. I think this next question is a pretty easy one for both of us to answer, but would you recommend this book, Barbara?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I have been. I've been recommending the series like any chance I get on this podcast. Like, if there's any book series you need to pick up, it's this one. It's just, I just love everything about the book series. I'm talking about the book series as a whole because it's like, if you haven't read the first one, it's kind of hard to recommend the second one. You know,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. So it's a package deal series. So but
Yep.
yeah,
Agreed.
absolutely,
And I agree with you
absolutely.
also. Absolutely recommend it. Recommend the entire series. Well, I guess I can't say the entire series. We haven't read the entire series, but the series as it stands, recommend it. We really liked the first one. I assume we're probably going to review the third one at some point on here too. At least I hope so. I have enjoyed doing the other two. For those of you leaving us at this point, don't forget to give us a rating if you like us. Make sure you're following us on both Facebook and Instagram. Our handle is at BadassLitPod in both places. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a book you want us to read for the show, please let us know. Now, Barbara is going to give us a short preview of our next episode. Next month, we are going to be reading The Wren and the Holly Library by K.A. Lind.
Can you love the dark when you know what it hides? Some things aren't supposed to exist outside of our imagination. 13 years ago, monsters emerged from the shadows and plunged Kiersey's world into a cataclysmic war of near total destruction. The New York City she knew so well collapsed practically overnight. In the wake of that carnage, the Monster Treaty was created, a truce of sorts. But tonight, Kiersey, a gifted and fearless thief, will break that treaty. She'll enter the Holly Library, not knowing it's the home of a monster. He's charming, quietly alluring, terrifying, but he knows talent when he sees it. It's just a matter of finding her price. Now she's locked into a dangerous bargain with a creature unlike any other. She'll sacrifice her freedom. She'll offer her skills. Together, they'll put their own futures at risk. But he's been playing a game across centuries, and once she joins in, there will be no escape.
Bum, bum, bum. Remember, the second part of this episode is going to be an in-depth look at Bloodmarked, so if you do want to read it, please stop listening now and come back and finish it when you're done.
Nom Nom is fresh dog food made by real people who really care. They're purposeful and enthusiastic about giving your dog the best food for them and their health, so they can thrive and be their best. Nom Nom delivers fresh food made with whole ingredients backed by veterinary science. And science tells us that dog health starts in the bowl, so improving their diet is one of the best ways to help them live a long, happy life. All you have to do is order, pour, and serve. Barbara and I have two dogs, Luna, a husky, and Quinny, a Shih Tzu mix. Our two dogs love the beef mash recipe, but to be honest, I'd say Quinny's favorite is the turkey fare. She drools when that comes out of the fridge. Yes, I know, Luna. I'm going to tell them about that right now. Luna is an extremely picky eater and always has been. She usually takes forever to warm up to new food, but not with Nom Nom. She dove in immediately. Both dogs seemed to have more energy, and Luna's stools were no longer soft. Your dog's health starts in the gut. A better diet means softer coats, more energy, better breath, and smaller, more consistent stools. Your dog can't tell you if they're healthy, but you can tell when their health improves. It's the easiest way to take the guesswork out of feeding your dog the best. Nom Nom meals are pre-portioned for your dog's exact caloric needs. Board-certified vet nutritionists are kind of a big deal, and Nom Nom has 2 on staff that work extensively to ensure everything gets sent out is the very best for your dog's livelihood. So how does Nom Nom work? You tell them about your pup, age, breed, weight, allergies, and protein preferences. Then they tailor a specific amount of individually packaged Nom Nom meals and send them straight to you. Store the meals in the freezer or fridge until it's mealtime. They'll give you specific instructions on how to transition your dog from foods like kibble to always fresh Nom Nom for best results. Watch your dog clean their dishes, dance for dinner, and overall thrive. Ready to make the switch to fresh? Order Nom Nom today. Go to a link in the description of this episode and then use our referral code BADASSLIT. That's BADASSLIT and get 50% off your first order plus free shipping. Plus, Nom Nom comes with a money-back guarantee. If your dog's tail isn't wagging within 30 days, Nom Nom will refund your first order. No fillers, no nonsense, just Nom Nom.
Now, for those of you sticking around for the spoilers, here we go. So we'll start like we always do the second half of the podcast and nominate who we think deserves the Badass Character Award. Barbara, who is your nominee?
I mean, if you don't say Bree, there's something wrong with you. It's Bree, hands down.
I was going to say it's Gabriel, one of the regents. That's my nominee.
Okay.
But no, in reality, so I think Bree is the obvious choice. The other person I was considering nominating for this is actually either Sel or Alice, because I think they both
I
have
mean,
pretty strong arguments for the badass character award as well.
I feel like Sel is just like, I don't know. I guess I'd rather give it to Alice because like it would. She literally can't see anything like the
Aether or
the
Ether.
ether. I don't know how you pronounce it. Is it ether or ether?
I think it's just Ether. Yeah.
The ether. She can't see that, and she's plunged into this world that literally can kill her because she can't use any of the powers and stuff like that, and she's still willing to like participate. That like Sal is just like he was born a badass, you know. Like I feel like that's like he started like 5 miles ahead of everyone. Like it's
That's
not,
true.
you know. I feel
That's
like
fair. That's so maybe Alice then should be. I mean, in a world full of superheroes, Alice is Batman. She's just relying on
right.
her intelligence and strength.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
But I
But no,
mean,
I think
mine
that
is Bree.
Bree probably does deserve it, especially in this book. This is the Empire Strikes Back of this series, and Bree goes through. She goes through it. She has a
I
rough time.
guess I don't understand that reference unless you're a Star Wars fan. But
so Bree wins the Badass Character Award for a second time. Yeah, her second time winning that feat. Anyway, we'll move on to our character discussion section here. Barbara, will you kick us off talking about the woman herself, Bree?
My homegirl Bree. So in the last novel, this is the second one, she learns at the very end that she is actually the Scion of Arthur. Jesus, pronunciation, Barbara, of Arthur. So that means she's like pretty much this new magical being type thing because she has her root that comes from her mom's side that is she's a medium and all this stuff, and then she has Arthur's, Jesus, you think it would be easy to say Arthur's like whole thing going on. So she's like this little mix of something going on, and it's confusing and it's a lot to handle because it's like no one has this. So it's like, how do you handle both the root and Arthur's powers and all this whole thing? And it's yeah, that's Bree. And then it's just her continuation of learning how to deal with her powers and not fitting in with Legendborn people, and pretty much her journey and figuring out who she is. And in this world where even her being Arthur Scion isn't good enough for these people. And just, I mean,
because
I love
they're
Bree.
racist old white people.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. Yes.
Feels to be the core. I mean, obviously, also part of it is that she has this other magic that is not it's like the forbidden or unacceptable magic in their
I
order.
wouldn't say that. They just, the order doesn't know about root magic, actually. Like, it's, root magic is very hush hush in their community. Like, they make a point to not announce it to the world that they have this.
Yeah.
So
other types of ether are top secret, classified with the Regents. Only the highest of the order know about this other.
I think you're wrong. But anyways, Bree's our main girl. It's her point of view throughout the novels, first person point of view of Bree, and it's just, she's this badass 16-year-old who's going through a lot. It's not just like, oh, do I like this boy or this boy? Like, homegirl is going through it. It's just, yeah. So I love Bree.
You do sometimes forget, because of all the stuff she's going through and all the things that she's gone through already, that she's still literally a teenager.
Yes. Yeah, because everyone else, I think they're at least, because they're all in college, so they're at least 18, I believe.
Yeah.
It's just her and Alice that are 16-year-olds.
Correct.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. Next character on this list is Selwyn Kane, which is his full name, but he's mostly referred to as Sel by his friends and other people in the book. Sel is a descendant of Merlin. He's a Cambion, which means he's half demon, half human. He is the King's Mage, or he's bonded to Nick, which means he's he's destined only to protect and give his life for him. But he also is trying to protect Bree a lot of this book because Nick is MIA and Bree needs somebody.
I mean, because we learned that Nick isn't the Scion of Arthur, and
Correct.
he was supposed to be the protector of Arthur.
Of the Scion of Arthur, yeah.
So
that's true. Yeah, that is part of it also. In this book, Sel is also struggling because he's apart from Nick, and the Cambions were designed by Merlin to have a perfect balance of the demon side of them that wants and thirsts for power, and the oath, which is designed to keep that they're supposed to protect this specific person or the order in general, and that is supposed to keep them balanced and sane, for lack of a better word. And being away from Nick, we see Sel transform throughout the book as becoming a little bit more tilting towards the demon side, because we know that one thing that can happen in this world is the Merlins can, what's the phrase that they use,
I don't know where you're going.
Give into the dark side effectively, and then they have
so they have oaths to protect others around them and then themselves too, in the sense that they're bound to the oath. So it's pretty much a leash. It's a collar on them. They're super powerful beings, but they're not allowed to hurt like Arthur or Arthur's Scion. They're not allowed to go against their oaths, depending on what oaths they said. Right. So it's a leash on them so they can be contained, since they are Cambions, essentially.
Yes. That's what I was trying to get at, that it's that oath is designed to balance out the demon side of them and keep them
right, because they feed off of fear and this kind of stuff, and I guess the oaths balance that out somehow.
Right. So that's just a brief insight into Sel.
I mean, he also is in love with Bree. You forgot to.
He is in love with Bree. He is part of the love triangle that has persisted into this book as well. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a strange love triangle in that, like, it's like very like clear that Bree loves Nick and wants to be with Nick, but then has like these feelings about Sel, and Sel clearly has these feelings about her too. And so it's,
how's that a weird love triangle? Isn't that all love triangles?
I don't know. Is it all love triangles?
You've read some books that have love. I'm sure you have.
The gist of love triangles?
Bro, haven't you like read, I don't know, the winged, what is it, North Wing or something like that, and South Wing? It's something North Wing. Is it something Wing? I don't know. Doesn't that have a love triangle?
You're about Fourth Wing?
Yes, that. Does that not have a love triangle?
No, that's more of like an enemies to lovers kind of a thing.
Yeah. Sure. What about the other chick that you like? Doesn't that have a love triangle?
Oh, the Throne of Glass series? Yeah, that does have a love triangle.
Okay, well, there you go. No. You have stuff to compare it to, don't lie. Anyways.
No. Anyway.
I don't think it's weird. I don't know. I think it's one of those things where, like, it's, you got your golden retriever and then your black cat, and Sel is the bad boy, and the connection between that is just like they've both lost, well, all three of them have lost their mothers technically, but she kind of bonded with Sel regarding that. Anywho, we're not doing this love triangle thing. Moving on.
We will later. There's a whole question about it, but anyway,
well, there we go.
You can tell us about Alice.
So, like we mentioned earlier, Alice is Bree's best friend. She is just, they have a specific name for humans that aren't part of the once-borns. Yes, once-born. So she is a once-born, aka she has no abilities, no powers. She can't see ether. She is just she's extremely smart, and I absolutely love her character. Are we gonna, like, at the end of this book, we are not quite sure what's gonna happen to Alice, and I'm a little sad about that, because I absolutely love her friendship with Bree. So I will. Anyways, that's Alice.
That is Alice. We'll have to see, like you said, what happens. Let's see. Next is William. William is the Scion of Gawain. He
oh my god, that's how you say that?
Yes.
Gawain. Oh my.
I may not be pronouncing it correctly.
Oh, didn't you do the audiobook?
I primarily actually read this.
Okay.
I didn't listen to as much of the audiobook this time.
Oh man. I mean, I don't know how to
Google
pronounce
it. It's
these
a Welsh word.
I don't know how to pronounce Welsh words.
I'm not Welsh either. Anyway, he's the scion of I'm going to say Gawain. If I'm mispronouncing it, you can let me know.
I
Send
don't
me a
know.
direct message and be like, "Hey, you idiot, you can't pronounce words." But that is who William is. He's incredibly strong for certain parts of the day, but he's also primarily the healer of the story. His powers are primarily used to heal people, and he uses them frequently. He is actually one of my favorite characters in the series. I really like William. He's kind of Bree's. I will say, outside of Alice, William is like Bree's like second bestie in the order. He's the person that even from the beginning, when everybody was like very against the fact that she was black and coming into this organization, and he's never had a problem with her for any reason at all. He's always supported her being there. He's always made sure she's okay. He checks in on her all the time. He literally has like saved her life on a number of occasions too, as well as a lot of other people that are on this list. But he's a really interesting character, and I really like William, and I hope nothing bad happens to William.
I know, right? I'm gonna be so sad if something bad happens to William.
Yeah.
He's like the moral compass of the group, really. Like you can tell like he doesn't like to fight. He does it because he has to, but you can tell how much that hurts him having to cause damage when like his primary like focus in life is to heal others. And he's also, well, he was wanting to become a doctor because he was in college and blah 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 blah.
Yeah. So that's William. Barbara, you want to tell us about the next character?
Yeah, so Nick is obviously, well, not obviously, come to find out that he is not the scion of Arthur. He's actually the scion of Lancelot. If you don't know the story of Arthur's Round Table, Lancelot is his like second in command. And Nick has been whisked away or kidnapped technically by his father and his father's king's mage. And this book is kind of Sel and Bree trying to rescue him, even though Nick, when they find him, didn't want to be rescued type thing. And then Bree and Nick have like this connection when she goes into Arthur's memories that they can communicate with. And he's not really in the book that much like he was obviously in the first book, but you still get pieces of him and they're still talking about him, and obviously he's still very relevant to like Bree and her journey, and even Sel and their really kind of interesting relationship and dynamic that they have. So he's still very, very important to the overall story and plot and character development. He's just not like there with them since he's been kidnapped. Come to find out that the Regents want to kill him because they can't control him, and they already have someone they can't control that they want to sneak in there in place. It's just terrible, but that's Nick.
That is Nick. Let's see. Next character is Erebus. If you're still listening and you don't want to be spoiled, this is the moment to reconsider that, because about to spoil a big one. So Erebus is the seneschal of one of the regents. I cannot remember exactly. No, he's not. Erebus is he? No, he's not a seneschal.
He's the main one.
The
he's
leader
like,
of the mage guard.
Number one homeboy
Yes.
here.
Yes, he's like the number
of
one
all
Merlin.
of all the Merlins.
Yes, the leader of the mage guard. He's a badass. He absolutely, I mean, he's super powerful. He's super old.
We learn how old he is.
Yes, we do learn how old he is. It's interesting because like of the group of people that you meet that are of the Regents, that I'm just going to go out and say it, they're all evil. They are evil as hell.
Terrible
The
people.
Regents, they're all bad people. They just want power, and that's all they really care about. He seems to be at least until later in the book, he seemed to be like the least of that group as far as the evil.
I still think he is. He infiltrated them for his own interests.
Yes.
But like he's still like, it's weird to say that he has an investment with Bree, but like he still seems to be like the least problematic of the whole group.
I guess
which
that's
is
what I was trying to say. It's like he was like the voice of reason in a lot of scenes where the Regent were doing like some messed up stuff. And it's odd knowing, like in hindsight, because spoiler alert, you learn that Erebus is actually the Shadow King, or the leader of the Shadow Court, the opposite of Arthur, the other on the other side of the spectrum, and he's infiltrated the the Legendborn Order in this way. But yeah, he is the voice of reason a lot of times. Like when they wanted to do like some really messed up stuff to people and Bree, and he kind of steps in and is like, wait, should we really like? He follows orders because he's still trying to blend in. But it was in hindsight after learning who he is and that he's like, from Arthur's perspective and from the Regents and most of the Legendborn Order's perspective, like he is like the king
big
bad
bad
guy.
Yeah.
But he's like, but he's the way, in a lot of ways, he's less evil than
Right.
them.
I was
And so
gonna
that,
say this is why this book is so good. It's because like you like stereotypically in a fantasy world, you have your big bad, and then you have the little generals and then the little soldiers of this big bad that you normally see throughout the book, and then you fight in the very end the big bad. But like there's so much nuance in this because technically Erebus is the big bad. Like we just found out he is the big bad, right? But like if you were to ask me, I would say the Regents to me are worse than him right now.
Yes, yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. And I keep using Star Wars references just because that's in my head right now. But like if like Bree and her group are like the rebels, and I feel like the Regents are the Empire. Like they feel like the big bad guys. But then who is this third party that's also a big bad guy? I don't know. It's that's why I'm excited to see what happens in the next book, because you don't find out about who Erebus is until the very end of the second book, or near the end of the second book.
He's also the demon that gave Bree the powers, but yes. Bree's line, her line of like her great grandma, whatever, I don't even know how many greats were in between, but she's the one that she made the bargain with to protect her bloodline. It's with him. He kind of slipped in there, was like, here's my moment, you know.
Yep.
He's
that reminds me of another thing I want to talk about with him, with the bloodline. There's this character that you learn about that's like this like hunter who's hunting root crafters, right. and Bree is under the impression that this hunter is like after her and wants to kill her, and you find out that actually Erebus is
the hunter,
and well, I guess the Shadow Court in general is the hunter, maybe, but
no, it's him.
Is it just him? Okay.
Yes, for her bloodline, it's just him, and it's funny because the whole time you're thinking that he's going over there to kill them, but he's actually protecting them.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say.
Like, but he's protecting, but it's not like out of like love. It's an invest. He literally says, "You are my investment. Yeah. I made a deal, and I'm watching you as my investment." And like, it's all like, but that's what I like about him. He's honest. Like he's gonna tell you to your face what he's doing and how he's gonna do it, and that he is the bad guy, unlike the Regents who like hide under this facade and be like, oh, we're just trying to protect people, and in reality, like, they're terrible people. So it's like, I would prefer someone who's honest with me and be like, I'm gonna kill you, you know. But
which is literally what he says to Bree at the end, is when she's like, she asks him to train her. And he's like, he lays it out. He's like, I will train you. And when you get to this pinnacle of your power, then I will consume all of it. And he just lays it out.
Kill you and take all the power from me. She's like, okay, go off.
Which is wild. Which is why I wonder what happens next. But anyway, that's a little bit about Erebus. He's a very interesting character. That's a lot about him.
He's a super interesting character, for sure.
All these characters are super interesting. She created a world that it not only feels incredibly alive, but like I'm invested in everybody.
All the characters.
The good guys, the bad guys, the minor characters. Like they're all interesting.
Yes. 100%.
Shout out to Tracy Deonn.
Queen.
So that's Queen. That's Erebus. Barbara, why don't you tell us about Valak?
So Valak is also a Cambion, but he is not part of the Legendborn. He is born from the root magic, and this is interesting because we've only seen Merlins, as they're called in the Legendborn society, whatever you want to call them.
The Legendborn Order. Yep.
But Valak is not part of the order. He and he was like, he is a Cambion. He's just like Sel. Is the difference is he called it that he's like, what did he say, like an OG? I don't know what the difference is. Maybe because it's not so, like, I would say, like, he is an original in the sense that like his mom accidentally fell in love with an incubus. I think it's incubus that is the man, and succubus is the woman version.
Correct.
So like he is like the product first, the first like generation is what I'm trying to get here, the first generation. And he kind of teases Cell in the sense that he's like, oh, Cell, like you're like years and years of like issues, and that's why you have problems type thing. He's funny. I find his character really interesting because like technically he's supposed to be not a good guy because he is half demon, but like his family is part of the Rootcraft people, and they're not bad guys, you know, like they're humans.
Yeah.
And so it's just this very interesting like kind of dynamic that he has. He's the owner of the Crossroads Lounge, and he is a campaign that does deals. So he's kind of like that. I think even in the book they mentioned, I think it's a song where like you meet the devil on the crossroads, and like you make like a deal with the devil, essentially. Like that's Valak. He's your middleman.
It's pretty much implied that like all the literature and songs and myth about the devil is actually referring to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's pretty much the middleman between humans and demons, and making those deals for humans to get powers, and making sure that neither party gets screwed over. But like normally, let's be honest, it's the humans that get screwed over. I don't think the demons ever do. They still get theirs type thing. So he's just making sure that like it's a good deal. Like he's a wheeling and dealing kind of a character. He's super interesting. I really liked his character. It was just seeing him and Bree's interaction and stuff like that, and even Selwyn, because little poor Cell. But I just, like I said, like he isn't a main character. He is a side character for this book. He's very important of like his relationship and how like how he helps the group and all this stuff. But like he's so well written, and so like it's not just like a kind of side character that's just kind of there, you know. Like I don't know, like the way, anyways, I can just go on about like how much I love her writing characters, but I digress. Valak that's who he is.
And power level, it's especially laid out that he would be on the same power level as like the original Merlin, because he makes a comment to Cell at one point that like, do you think like Merlin's mom is the only human woman who ever slept with an incubus?
Right.
And he's supposedly is like the child that born from that, so he's first generation, just like Merlin would have been.
Exactly. Yeah. Literally, he is the first gen of just like how
his line or whatever.
Right. Yep.
All right, that is Valak. Sestra is the final person, and in general the regents, because she's one of the regents. There's three of them. It's Gabriel, Sestra, and Aldrich, and then they each have a seneschal, which is like the mage part of their regent, because there's the Lord Regent, and then the Regents of Light and the Regents of Shadows, and that's
it's a whole thing.
It's a whole political system.
Yeah,
but it's as someone who really enjoys that kind of stuff in books, it was very interesting to read about that and like the hierarchy and how corrupt it is in this world. And from the out, but they do a really, they've got really great PR people, because everybody else who's part of the Legendborn system and the Order thinks, for the most part, at least up until a certain part of this book, they all think they're great. The Regents are fantastic.
Well, I feel like the Legendborn actual people who are Scions, and then their knights are against them, and then everyone else is for them type thing.
Yeah.
Anywho,
anyway, they're super corrupt. Sestra seems like the most evil, because we at least we see her behaving. I don't know. I really I'd like all of them to die, but I'm really looking forward to when she dies, because she just seems the most sinister. That's a better word. Like the most outwardly sinister, not including obviously because a lot of the seneschals, like the Tacitus, who's the guy that like manipulates your mind.
Yeah.
And, like
he seems the creepy as
he
F1.
is super creepy.
Ugh.
I'm saying of the three regents. So
really?
Of like Gabriel, Aldrich, and
I
her.
Think, which one is the light one? Gabriel, he's the one that creeped me out the most.
He's creepy, but I still think
Anyway.
I'm excited to see the Empire. I mean, the Regency fall, because I hope that's going to happen in the next book. But that's the last of our characters. We'll jump into our discussion questions now. Our first one is: Bloodmarked builds heavily on the themes of identity and legacy. How does Bree's understanding of herself shift over the course of the book?
I mean, I think this book is pretty much her journey into discovering who she is, because she thought she knew who she was, and then at the end of the first book she learns that she is the Scion of Arthur, and then that throws a whole wrench in her, like, okay, then what am I type thing. She's a new breed. She's the only of her kind type thing. And so then you see her having this kind of like, she wants to honor her bloodcraft, or not bloodcraft, her root magic, and then still be the Legendborn. And then you can see like she has a foot in each side, but like it's neither are working for her because she is unique. And at the end of this book she finally just says, you know what, like, I'm going to do this my way. I'm going to do this how I need to do this, because she was relying on both of them and it wasn't working for her. And you could see how that was kind of destroying her, because she had like the sense of obligation, I feel like, to honor her ancestors. And she's like, this isn't working, like everything you've taught me and everything you're doing, like it's not, like it worked for you guys but it's not working for me. And it was so important for me, at least, to see her realize that. And I could really empathize with her as someone who did grow up Latin. Like I am from Brazil and then moved to the US, and I feel like I'm never, like, I'm not white enough for the white folks and I'm not Latin enough for the Latin folks. And it's always this like this feeling that you feel like you're just not good enough for either side. And I can definitely see that with Bree. Like she wanted to take her role as Arthur, but like they're not accepting of her, and she realizes that very early because of she's black and they don't accept that. And then because of what happened to her, and literally it's not even her fault or her family's fault and how she got Arthur's powers, her community of the root, they're kind of wary of her in the sense that because like she has Arthur's power as well and she's a medium, so that is kind of an issue. And then I think they even say it's blood magic, I think they call what her type of magic is, with the root magic on top of the root magic, and like that's a huge no-no for the root crafters. So it's like she's kind of like, I don't know, like you can tell that she's feeling this sort of way. And then at the end of this book, it's like, I think it's going to be the journey, or the start of her journey of like realizing what that means for her to be both, and maybe accepting both in her own way and not letting both of those, I don't know, like communities, or like their, like Arthur and then her shoot, what is her name, the lady that made the deal with, that they got their powers from, Vera, like she's not having either of them controlling her. She's gonna do it her way. And I absolutely loved that whole journey for Bree.
I feel like that was a really fantastic answer to that question, and I kept thinking as you were talking of things I could add, and then you would talk about that next. And I don't have a lot to add. I think you answered that question pretty much perfectly. No, that's not a bad thing. It's just you said all the things that I would have said too. So that's we're on the same page. So our next question is, what did you think of the pacing and tone compared to Legendborn, and did it meet your expectations for a sequel? So the pacing, I think, in this book it felt to me a lot more fast paced. And I think that's because in the first book, she's developing the world and introducing us to all these characters. And so to do all of that, it's got to move at a little slower pace, which is okay. But this book, because we already know everybody, and even though they're introducing some new people, there's a lot more action, and it just felt a lot more boom, 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 boom. And, like Barbara and I both said in the first part of this podcast, like we both flew through this because it's hard to put down. And when it's fast paced, I think that happens. The tone, though, is a lot darker in book 2. Not that there's not that happening in Legendborn in the first book, but it definitely is a darker tone. And I think that, and I'll kind of get into that, I guess, in my expectations for a sequel. It absolutely did meet my expectations. Number one, absolutely loved it. And it feels in a lot of ways like a book 2, or like a movie 2 in a series. I keep comparing it to Star Wars. Either that, or you can talk about Lord of the Rings, or a lot of other like big, or even you could talk about Victoria Aveyard's Realmbreaker books. Like book 2 is, or movie 2, or the second book in the series is always the one where we see everything falls apart, and our characters, the bad guys kind of rise, and the good guys seem to like have a misstep, and they're not as successful, and it ends in a situation where like it feels like all is lost. And that's kind of a lot of what happens here. And so I kept walking over to Barbara when I was reading the last part of this book, because I was like, I hate Tracy Deonn right now, Barbara. She's killing these characters that I really like, that maybe aren't dead. You learn at the end, but it's like it's a rough ending to the book. Like, I can't imagine if I had read this book in 2022, I would just be like chomping at the bit to read the next one. I'm excited that I read it in 2025 and that the third book has already come out and I can just jump right into it. But it's so yes, it met all of my expectations for a sequel. It kept my interest wrapped the entire time. It was fantastic. It left you in a place where you're feeling for all of these characters, because you don't really know like the status of a lot of them, and even the ones that you do, like everything is up in the air. So much is happening. Evil seems to be winning, and so it leaves you in a place of despair, which I think is a fun place then to move into book 3.
Interesting. So the pacing, obviously, Michael mentioned this. It's a first book is always going to be a little bit different pacing wise, because you as the reader, and then Bree too, and I always enjoy learning about this world through the main character's point of view, because you're learning with them, right? Like, you're on this journey with Bree, learning about the Legendborn, and then herself, the root magic that she didn't know that she had as well. So that's the first book. It's like you're lore dumping because you kind of need it because it's the first book, and then the second book is always building upon that. And honestly, I'm surprised at what you said, that because most people say like second book is the sophomore slump, where most authors struggle. I've read struggle writing it, and most people don't like the second book because it's a like it's the medium that ties the first and the third book together. I absolutely loved the second book. This completely blew my expectations out of the water. But
Which
it's
is why
funny.
I compared it to the things that I compared it to, because I feel like that's a compliment. Like these big things, and Victoria Aveyard's Realmbreaker, where the second book was good. Anyway, back
Okay.
to you, Barbara.
I thought she did a fantabulous job, a fantastic job of kind of tying in like what we already know of the Legendborn, building upon it, but like then we actually, for this book, I think we learn more about her root side and what that means, and how they commune with their ancestors, and how they use ether differently than it's the same, essentially it's the same ether, it's the same, but like how they pull the power differently and stuff like that. So I feel like she built upon this world, these characters, and the pacing was good because it was kind of like, so you learn the lore and then like bam 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 stuff happens, and then you learn more, and then but like she does, I think it's hard for authors to do both plot and character driven stories, and this is such a prime example of someone who can do both very well, because it's both character driven and plot driven, because it's not like we're just like, oh, like character driven, like, oh, this is this. No, like there is a plot in this book and we're getting that. It's just she does it very well, where she interweaves it with the character part of it as well. 100% it met my expectations and then some. I feel for the tone though, I think, so I understand where you said it's dark, but I think they're both tone wise, I think it's different and similar. In the first book, I think it's dark because you're seeing Bree her grief and the anger that she feels of losing her mom, and trying to figure out that, and like you just see how that affects her. And then in the second book, you would think like, oh, okay, like she's maybe come to terms with that, but I think it's a different type of showing of the grief and the anger, and it's not so in your face but it's still simmering there in the background, and it takes a different form of showing that, how like you think like, oh, okay, like she's feeling better about this, but like you see instances where that is still affecting her and how it still will affect her, and how all these years of generational trauma and stuff like that is affecting all of this. And so I think the tone is just, I still think both books are dark. I think it's just a different form of looking at it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Moving on to our next question. The theme of betrayal, speaking of dark themes, runs throughout the story. Which betrayal hit you the hardest and why?
I don't know, because I feel like the most obvious one is Sel pretty much lying to Bree about his condition, and the condition is like leaning, or how would you say, like turning more into his
Yeah, I
demon
mean,
side? Like, is there an I think there's a term for it. It
yeah,
escapes me.
so if you think about it, like there's like a meter, like he's meant to be right in the middle,
Right.
and he's
Human and
it's the
Cambion, and
the
he's
gauge
leaning
is
towards
tilting more towards
yeah,
the bad side.
the
Yeah,
I don't want the bad side, but like the
the
darker,
demon side.
the demon side. Right. So I feel like maybe we're supposed to pick that. I like Selwyn. I enjoy his character. I don't like Selwyn for Bree for personal reasons, and I'll probably get into that if there is a different reason for that. I think
It's the next question.
okay. I feel like it's hard because like there are a lot of like small betrayals, like Nick not going with them when they find him, her Bree realizing that Nick is capable of murder, straight up murder. You know, we saw that. The same with Arthur, like he pretty much gaslit her the whole time. Once he learned that she was a medium, that he can control her, he like did that to her. So I would say for me, and it's not like the it's a different type of like hitting hard type thing. I would say it was the Arthur betrayal, because I mean, I so this is interesting because like in theory, Arthur is supposed to be a good guy. In practice, in this book, he's not. He's really not. If you look at his memories and who he is as a character, he's kind of a dick. Like, you know, and it's like I don't know, like you want to believe in him because he's supposed to be this great guy who destroyed the demons and blah 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 blah, but like what he did to do that and what he's comfortable with in getting what he wants isn't a good look. And I find that super interesting because all these characters are very three-dimensional. They're not
Another
just
interesting character.
right, like they're not so like one-dimensional, you know, like they are good and bad, like they have good and bad traits, and that's what makes such a good character a good character. And so to me, it was learning that Arthur was willing to screw her over and pretty much wanting to take over her and be his glorious self again in her body, that I was just like, okay, like you're not this awesome legend and pure person that everyone claims you are. Like you're actually kind of a terrible person. And for me, I feel like that hit a little bit harder than Sel. Obviously, for Bree, it was Sel's betrayal, you know? And I was just like, oh, that's such a stereotypical dude. like, yes, okay. He was, and I get why he did it. Like, he was scared of what she would think of him. Like, it's pretty much just because he is in love with her, and he didn't want her to think of him as like a demon or whatever. It's
I
a
think
whole
he didn't
thing.
want her to worry about him too.
Well, it's a whole thing. I understand, but like I was just like, it's not shocking to me. Like, dude's gonna dude. I'm just playing, but yeah, I think that would be my pick because I was like, you want to root the Legendborn people. I'm sorry. I feel like they're terrible people. They really are. Like, the more you find out about them, the more you're just like, these are not. What is happening? Like, you're supposed to be the heroes, and you're not. You know, so. I feel like Arthur doing all that stuff, I think I'm curious to see how much that's going to affect, because it was not a good look. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought Barbara was going to talk about Sel, and I was like, perfect, because I'm going to talk about Arthur. And then Barbara talked about Arthur.
Why did you think I would talk about Sel?
Because you started talking about him first, and I was like, yes, she didn't pick the one I
Oh,
was going
come
to pick,
on.
and you transitioned. Anyway, I think that there are two betrayals that I'm going to talk about a little bit. I'm going to talk just a small amount about the one Barbara talked about, because I have a couple of things that I think a little bit differently about. So Arthur's betrayal hits super hard for a lot of reasons, because Bree thinks that, like, even when you find out that the Regents and the Legendborn Order are actually like pretty freaking evil and they're not good people, like there's still this hope that, like, okay, but the Scions and these legends like Arthur and Lancelot and Gawain and all these people, the Knights of the Round Table, you're like, well, they're not. They're still the good guys, right? Like, we can rally around them. And then you find out, like Barbara said, that when Arthur tricks her into letting him out and then doesn't go back, that was a huge betrayal. And it was shocking because you don't expect that. At least I didn't expect that. I expected him to eventually get called on, because that's kind of like the whole theme of the book, is that, waiting for the call of Arthur in some ways. That's at least in the first book. Like when you find out she's a Scion, and then when you find out the Regents are evil is when, anyway, I'm not going to go into all of that. But I think that there's another side of it. And that's Barbara was talking about how, like, all these 3-dimensional characters that have a lot of depth. Like, I don't think Arthur is evil. I don't think he's necessarily like a bad guy. I think he is a dick in some ways. But I think that instead of portraying him or showing him as like just like the stereotypical white knight, perfect hero, like, he's a person. He was a person. He had flaws. There were good things and bad things. I think in some ways Arthur and his scions may have been tricked a little bit by Merlin, especially Arthur, because you find out when he switches places with Bree that Arthur has been in this dream that Merlin created for him as part of the spell, and he's effectively trapped there. And you find out that as long as he pretends everything is real and just pretends that the dream is real life, everything's fine. But if he starts to like kind of rebel against that, then the dream is designed to punish him for that.
Yeah.
And so on one hand, it's like, gosh, that's horrible that Arthur gaslit Bree to get out. But on the other hand, it's like, if you're in Arthur's shoes, like, he saw a way out of this like prison that he's been in for hundreds of years. And so it's like, well, I can see both sides of it. I don't like that he took over Bree, but I also understand that he has been trapped in this mind prison effectively for all this time. And then, like, the other thing Morgaine is Arthur's sister, half sister,
Yep.
and the current Legendborn society sees the Morgaine line as like this evil group of people.
Lied about it.
And when Arthur figures that out, he's like, what? I loved my half sister. And so that was like a really interesting, like, the order makes you believe that, like, Arthur was also against, like, Arthur and the knights were against the Morgaines as well. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, they've been killing your line? Like, you're what? Like, he was just as shocked. And I really hope that's explored more in the upcoming books too, because that's a very interesting plot line. But so anyway, that was a big betrayal. The other one that I think is less obvious in the sense, because we were thinking about Breeze and she's the main character, but Erebus betraying the Order was also a big betrayal. That there was, at least I was not expecting Erebus to be the Shadow King.
They don't know that he's betrayed them.
They don't know yet.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the other one I was going to mention. But
yeah.
Moving on to our next question. Nick, Selwyn, and Bree's relationships get increasingly complicated. What are your thoughts on the way their dynamic evolves? So it's interesting. Their dynamic, it has like the love triangle tropishness to it, but it's also like, outside of those feelings, like it's 3 very close friends that are trying to do the best that they can in their minds to take care of each other. Like Barbara mentioned in the last question, like Nick not coming with them when they find him and murdering somebody. Like, from Bree's perspective, that's a huge betrayal. Like, why would he not do that? But from Nick's perspective, he's trying to keep Bree and Sel safe, and he thinks that he's like kryptonite, or he's radioactive. They have to stay away from him. And so it's this interesting dynamic of romance and brotherhood in the sense of Sel and Nick, and just extremely close relationships, whether those are, and that's why it's so interesting, I guess, compared to some other books that are written with this trope, because yes, there are romantic feelings between Bree and Nick and Bree and Sel, but there are also some romantic feelings between Sel and Nick, or at least there were. And then there's like the brotherhood thing because they've been bonded together since they were children, and they also, all three of them are like besties in a way. Like it's this very like complicated, interwoven relationship that the three of them have, and it's interesting to see that get explored and some of those knots get unwoven a little bit. And so it was very interesting to see that evolve from book one into book two, because in book one it was more of like the love triangle trope where like Bree loves Nick, but Bree also has feelings about Sel. Oh no, what will she do? And then now in book two, it's like, okay, so these feelings are still there, but the world around them is still moving and things are still happening, and that can't be the focus, even though sometimes, she's a teenager and they're both young people. They want it to be, and it's interesting. And so their relationship dynamic between the three of them is very interesting, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that evolves going forward. Will Bree end up with one of them? I don't know. Will one or all three of them die? I don't know. I think one of the three of those characters is going to die in a
I was
future
thinking
book.
that too.
But it's a very interesting relationship, but it's not the romance part, at least for me, that makes it interesting. It's everything else. It's just the characters, even though they're fantastic and they have powers, but they feel, when it comes down to like the friendship and the relationships part of it, like they feel very real. And I really like that about all the characters, but these three especially with their dynamic. And I'm excited actually to see how that evolves in the future books and where their relationships go.
Yeah, so if you remove love triangles have gotten a bad rep as of late. I feel like, as it should, if you ask me, because I feel like it was a thing, and then it turned into a thing, and then it turned into a trope, and then people are just doing it to do it, and it's not well written, and it's not like, I have a love-hate relationship with love triangles, essentially. But I think the way that Tracy Deonn did for the three of them, because if you remove the quote-unquote love aspect out of it, like Michael said, these three characters are still really good friends. And just like any good friendship, like, you have your ups and downs, right? And to be a true love triangle, if you were to ask me, this is it. Because you have, and we're talking about Sel, because if you look at a triangle, it's A likes B and C, right? That's Sel. Sel likes A and C. That's a true love triangle. The true love triangle isn't just like one character like one or this and then the other one's not. That's like a weird, like, I don't even know what shape that is. So I love that she did that, first off. Secondly, I do think that what makes this interesting, like Michael mentioned, is the relationship that they have that's outside of the love aspect. And you can even say like the love that they have for each other, because it's a very interesting dynamic. Especially I think with Sel, I think he's the one that makes all of this extremely interesting, because it's like he has an oath to protect Nick their whole life, but then like their camaraderie and then like their brotherhood that you see that they build, and did he mistake that for love? Did he mistake that for this? Like, you don't know, because he even mentioned, he's like, yeah, I it's confusing, all this stuff. And then it's the same thing with Bree, and then Bree is feeling like, oh, do you only want to protect me? Do you only want to do all these things because of me being the Scion of Arthur? Because before, he tried to murder her multiple times in the first book, like multiple times he tried to kill her. And so it's like, so she's confused, because she's like, okay, like, I feel this attraction towards him, but like, is his attraction towards me only because of the bond that he it's like, is it a necessity, or does he truly like me? And you get this scene where he's like, that was my biggest regret, is not showing you that like all of this, yes, it's true, I have to do this, but I actually genuinely care for you outside of all of this stuff as well. And it is complicated because they're teenagers and hormones and all this fun stuff, but like, also, like Michael mentioned, like, this environment that they're in isn't conducive even to friendship. Like, I feel like it's tearing them all apart. Like, they all feel like obligations and oaths that they have to live up to, and all of the stuff that really just kind of messes with it, on top of the fact that like, you kind of have to trust these people with your life. they each kind of are guarding that towards, like, for themselves. Like, Nick doesn't go with them because he wants to find a way to break the cycle without killing Bree, you know? And I feel like they're going to go towards that because I feel like Bree wants that now as well. Like, I think she's fine. Like, you know what? Screw the cycle. Like, I want this to end. It's like the regents are keeping it alive and they don't understand why they're keeping it, you know, like they want this whole thing to still be a thing. I think it's just because of power, like Michael mentioned, and I think she's realizing like maybe the best way to end this is to break the cycle, but obviously she doesn't want to get murdered. Yeah, it's just a very interesting dynamic between the three of them. And like I said, if you remove the romantic love out of it, like the respect and the care that they each have for each other is very well done, and it's really sweet to see, you know, just that aspect as well.
I agree with all of that also. Very insightful. Let's see. Next question here. Early in the book, Bree is kidnapped by members of the Order. How did this moment change your perception of the Legendborn society she fought so hard to be part of in Legendborn?
It, what is the word we're looking for here? It solidified what I thought, because I was always very weary of the Legendborn society. Maybe not even like the Legendborns themselves, because I feel like they're pawns of the Regents. I really do. I feel like the Regents before, maybe like when the Legendborns were just the Legendborns, the Scions, and their knights fighting the bad guys, pretty clear cut. Here we go. And then they kind of decided to have this little power dynamic of like, oh well, we need the Order to help us maintain and do all this stuff and blah blah blah. Because if you think about it, like the actual Legendborn, the Scions, are kids. They are children. Like they are children to teenagers because they don't live past the age of 35 if they're called upon, and they're supposed to be fighting these demons and all this other stuff, and they're freaking teenagers doing this. And so like someone out there was like, well, we need adults to like quote unquote handle this situation. And I think it blew up and turned into this whole thing, because you can see at the end where it's like the Regents are on one side, they want to control Bree, they want to lock her up and just put her there until they can pass her powers on to someone they want, versus now like the actual Scions and the Knights, who were always like, okay, well Bree, like you're our Arthur, like we will follow you, you're our king, it doesn't matter type thing. So it didn't surprise me. It just, I don't know how else to say this, and just like I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that they were like this, because she's a woman and she's a Black woman, and even in our society now, it's, you know, it's a thing. It's a thing, and it's not shocking to me that this happened. And it sucks that you can see the disappointment for Bree, that she was like, not even being the Arthur of Scion is good enough for these people. I will never be good enough for these people. And as someone who already sees that in this world, like I get it. And it sucks. And like you wish that wasn't the case, and you want the Order to be like the good guys, but they're not. And it's very much hinted, I feel like, in the first book, and it's just when that happens, you're like, okay, well, you know, like that makes sense. At least that was for me.
No, I 100% agree with that. I think that, like Bree, when you get to the scene where, because the scene she gets kidnapped in is when it's supposedly the ritual that where the Order is putting her through to, you know, fully call upon Arthur and, you know, take up the mantle and Excalibur and all of that. And I think, like Bree, as the reader, you want to believe that like this is the moment where like they're accepting her and they're letting this happen. But there's a part of you that knows that there's something probably sinister afoot. And so that actually might be the biggest betrayal in the book, is the scene where the Order seemingly turns against her.
Not the whole Order.
Not the whole Order, just the Regents.
Yeah. The people in power, essentially.
Yeah. And so, I mean, like you said, that moment did change a lot of how I thought about at least that aspect, like the political side, the older people that were part of this group. And it was really interesting, because I think that it was interesting to see like the Bree get like turned down by rejected by this order, and like all the evil stuff they did, like kidnapping her and interrogating her and using the seneschal to mesmer and wipe her memory so they could ask her the questions again and again and again and again and torture her effectively. And then later in the book, seeing Arthur himself encountered this group, and even he is like, hold on, like these people have warped and twisted everything. I think he is even not in agreement with what the older humans in the regents and the elders have done. So it's interesting to see that, like, even like the person who is like at the core of their whole thing, their society, doesn't agree with like how they've bastardized everything that they originally stood for, if that makes sense. So it was interesting to see that kind of come full circle, sort of, in the book. Let's see, our next question. How does Bloodmarked handle the idea of destiny versus choice? Do you think Bree is being forced into her path, or is she carving out her own? And I think Barbara kind of inadvertently answered this question really perfectly earlier in the podcast, when she said that one of her favorite things was seeing Bree kind of break out of this mold that she thinks she's supposed to fall into, and the obligations that she feels like she has, both to her ancestors on the root side as well as, you know, Arthur and the Legendborn side of it. So I think that even Bree thinks that she has this legacy and destiny that she has to live up to, and then it's really awesome to see her break out and say, you know what, screw all of this. Bree's going to do what Bree wants to do and what Bree thinks is the right thing to do. And, you know, there's that scene later in the book where she literally burns up the connections that she has to her ancestors, which in the memory or the blood walk is like the rivers that are connecting all of them together. She uses her power to dry up all those rivers and disconnect herself from that so that she can kind of be free to be herself. And so the book definitely paints this picture that everything is all about destiny, and this is your destiny and this is what you're meant to do, and it's pre-written, and not just for Bree, but for, you know, for Nick and for Sel and for a lot of the other people, all the other Scions and the sieges, what are the Legion, that's what they're called,
the Legions.
And it's interesting to see like that kind of paradigm shift where these people that have lived their entire lives being preached that it's destiny and this is what you're meant to do are now like, you know what, I don't think so. Like they're seeing behind the curtain a little bit, you know, a la Wizard of Oz, and realizing that it's not everything that they thought, and this legend and mythical story that the regents are feeding these kids to keep them in line and keep them doing what they want them to do. And then you peek behind the curtain, it's like, holy crap, these guys are evil as hell, and now they're making their own choices. And so it was really interesting to see that paradigm shift in this book, for not just Bree but for a lot of our characters.
Yeah, I think we both kind of answered this, but I think the first and almost 80% of this second book, it's all about preaching of the destiny. Like, you're destined to do this. This is what you have to do. This is the path that we've set for you. You have to do it. Blah 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 blah. And then, like I said, it's the gradual shift that you see for Bree being like, no. You are trying to force me into this path and it's not fitting. I'm not fitting this mold that you see of me. I'm not fitting this. And it was eating her up inside. And then she finally was like, you know, screw this. I'm going to burn it all, yes, to the ground, and carve out her own path. So I think it's a shift that we see in both books 1 and 2. And I'm curious to see where it's going to go with 3 and 4 with her. And I also think for the other characters as well, because like, especially for Nick, like he was like this destiny of like, you're Arthur, and then his whole world imploded when he's like, JK, you're actually Lancelot's. And it's like, what a huge thing to go from like all these expectations on you to not anymore, you know, like he's, for once in his life, he's free of all these expectations. And it's going to be interesting to see that for him, and same with Sel. Like I think all of the characters are going to go through the realization of like what they thought their path was and their destiny and all this other stuff, to like maybe being like, nah, we're gonna break this ceiling and we're gonna do it our own way. And I really hope that more of the characters band together and do that. Like I still have the slight hope that maybe not all the Scions are awful. Tora looking at you. You know, like we still got some good ones there type thing. So I'll be very curious to see this whole dynamic and how this goes.
Agreed. And also agree with the comment about Tor. So let's see. Our next question. Throughout the book, Bree struggles with her growing connection to Arthur's spirit. How did you interpret Arthur's influence on Bree's choices and behavior?
I mean, Arthur gaslit her. Like, once he learned that she was a medium.
Did you see that coming, though? Like, did you think he was gaslighting her?
So I found. I feel like maybe I'm just a very like, I don't trust people very easily. And so I was a little hesitant because, like, yes, he's supposed to be like this great hoo-ha person, but I was like, there was just something off that I was just like, I'm not quite sure what it was. I thought he was lying about a lot of stuff. I didn't realize that it was like he put two and two together and said, oh, she's a medium. I can literally I can be myself. Because, like, she's the only one who has that. Like, all the other ones, it's not like they're Scion or whatever you want to call it. Like, Lancelot isn't taking over Nick. It's just his powers. Like, they don't have, like, this connection where they're actually physically talking to the ghost or the soul or whatever you want to call them of their actual knight. It's like they're just using their experiences and their preferences and their ether controlling all this stuff to, like, help them. Whereas with Bree, it's like literally it's a ghost inhibiting your body, you know? So it's quite different, the dynamic. And I was a little weary about him. I thought it was going to be the fact that maybe he lied about how things happened, and it kind of seems like he is fibbing a bit in that sense too, because when Bree was in this memory world, like, she was like, I'm not sure if this is actually what happened or if this is how Arthur wants it to be perceived and wants it to be, like, because, you know, it's like one of those things where, like, you have a memory of something and it's not exactly how it occurred, you know? So yeah, I feel like yes and no. I wasn't expecting him to just be like, screw you, I'm taking over, this is my body now. I was like, what the fudge, dude? I just thought it was maybe something more like, we come to find out that he wasn't all, you know, he was cracked up to be, which I kind of feel like that is kind of what the resolution of what we understood it to be, you know? But
yeah. I think my biggest surprise with the Arthur thing was finding out that part of the gaslighting or part of the manipulation that he was doing was, like, he was intentionally making her magic misfire to make her think that, like, there was something wrong and that she couldn't do it, and which in hindsight makes sense because he wanted her to call on him. And so he was trying to manipulate her into thinking that, like, to be able to have this power and do this stuff, you have to. And so I don't know. It was interesting, and like I was talking about Arthur earlier, like, it's very conflicting because I can see, like, why he wants to get out of this prison that he's in. Once we see
like, you
Bree
had your
in
moment,
the prison.
dude. It's like those 30-year-olds or 40-year-olds who peaked in high school. That's what he reminds me of. I'm so sorry if that's a terrible thing to say, but that's what he reminds me of. He reminds me of the little quarterback who had his blazing moment in high school and can't get over it. That's what he reminds me of someone who's like, you had your moment and you're refusing to let the younger generation have theirs.
It was, and I guess I see that to some extent. I think that it was interesting to see. I'm glad that what happened because it was really interesting to see, like, how Arthur looked at everything once he was out in the world. And Arthur's perspective on her powers was also the reason that I think that, and Erebus's knowledge, but that the higher ups know about the different ether users, and it's not not just like God, what do they call them? Like rogues, the rogues. Because that's all the Legendborn Order allows them to know, is that there are rogue ether users out there. But it's like Arthur knows that they're root workers. Arthur knows there are the other people that do certain things. Erebus and the Mage Guard know about root work, the more gains. So I think that knowledge is there, but it's been intentionally, like, suppressed for the majority of people because they don't want them to know. because part of their whole aesthetic and their lore is they want these Scions and the what was Bree before she was the Scion? Paige. They want these people to think that they're special and they're the only ones out there who can do this stuff, and that's part of like their whole mystique. And so if they knew that all these other groups of people are doing stuff too, then it makes theirs seem less special. And so that was interesting. But I think, like Barbara mentioned, like Arthur did have influence on a lot of what Bree was doing, and it was shitty to learn that at the end that it was nefarious influence that he was using on her. I didn't like that, but I'll be very curious to see, because obviously, even though at the end of the book, right, even though at the end of the book, Nick and Sel are able to force them to switch back.
Yeah.
Arthur is still inside her,
right?
Like that. She's still the Scion of Arthur. So there'll be more to that story, and that is an aspect of the story I'm very excited to learn more about, because, and I kind of like internally, you know what? I'm not gonna say this. I'm gonna leave this for our predictions. So I'll hold off on that thought and move on to the next question. What did you think of the new characters that we met in this book, as well as the scenes at the Crossroads Lounge specifically? So that part of the book that takes place at the Crossroads Lounge when they're on their road trip. I really enjoyed that entire scene. It felt like the Rogues Lounge felt like a tavern scene ripped out of like the stereotypical fantasy books, but in this modern world. And so that was really cool. Meeting Valak and learning more about his nature and the fact that he is what most humans think is the devil, and that there are all these people in this lounge, the rogues, as Sel calls them, that are warlocks that have made deals with what was verified, or what was the term that he called the deals that were not done through him or through another? Unsanctioned deals. Yeah. So these were people who have made sanctioned deals with him or other brokers to have these magical powers. So there's literally just regular humans that have turned into warlocks, like other fantasy stuff does. And so that was interesting to run into those people and see how Bree and the other Legendborn people that she was with interacted with those people. The fact that dude Valak has like an arena on the rooftop for like fights and stuff like that was really interesting. I really enjoyed Valak as a character. I'm excited to see more of him specifically, but I also am very intrigued by, like, I feel like Tracy gave us like a little peek into this like outside world of magic users that aren't just root crafters or Legendborn. Like, it's this other group. And I hope that those kinds of people have a larger role in the future books. So I want to know more about like is there like a group of warlocks out there that are going to play into this story? It's interesting to see the world grow in that way, and I hope that we get more of that going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I liked all the new interesting characters, like even the Merlin, who is supposed to be her king's mage. What's his name? He was Lark. Yeah, he's an Irish dude. So like, and it's funny because like Bree is not a fan of him, and it turns out that like he is actually an inside man that's pretending to be with the Regents and the King's Mage and the King's Guard and all this stuff, but like secretly he's working for them and her, so that was a cool dynamic, a little bit of him. And I'm curious to know if we're going to see more of him. I feel like there was a little hint of love between him and William. So
yes, there was.
Yeah, so I'll be curious to see about that. I mean, Valak absolutely loved him and his whole the lounge and the different magic, like Michael said, like all the new characters, and even like learning more about the old characters and stuff like that has just been very interesting. And we met more rootcraft people who practiced, and seeing that side of the magic and how they do it versus the Legendborns, and I found that very interesting, and really would love to know even more about that and how they pay their respects to their ancestors. And it was so bomb to see that even the quote-unquote most powerful Merlins and a bunch of freaking Merlins could not destroy that.
Oh, that barrier at Volition?
Barrier in Volition. Yeah. Like, oh my god. I was like rooting. I was like, yes, like this is Like, it just goes to show you, like, the Legendborn people are like, oh, we're the most powerful, we know how to use it, and it's like, F you. Like, actually, you know, like, they have their own barriers that they can set up, and, like, it was just so great, so satisfying to see that the root crafters, they don't even have to put it up. It's just because their ancestors are protecting them, and it's, like, 30 bajillion times better. And I'm just like, exactly. Like, it's
And that's
exactly.
actually a scene that we should have made, or I should have picked up more a little bit, like Arab, because Erebus was of the Mage Guard approaches that, and they're all like feeling it, trying to find ways through. But looking
Yeah,
back,
he stayed
he
away
never did.
from it. Yeah.
He knew.
Yeah, he's like,
That, he's like,
I'm not gonna mess with this. We can't.
and in hindsight, knowing how powerful, like, he is,
Yeah.
not Erebus, but the Shadow King, like,
Right.
and he knew that this magic was even more powerful than something he could break,
Right.
is crazy.
Right.
But
I just love that because it was just like a big middle finger to them. It's just like, you guys think you're so much better than, you know, these little root crafters and all this stuff, and they just was like, they wiped the floor with that. It was just so sweet to see. Anyways.
yes. Moving on to our final question. The ending leaves Bree's future very uncertain, and everybody else's future is very uncertain. What are your predictions or hopes for where her story will go next?
Gosh, I have so much. I don't know, especially knowing that this is the third book and then there's a fourth. I think maybe the fourth book is the last one. I'm not really sure if she's actually come out and said it, because I know originally it's supposed to be a trilogy, and then obviously it's not anymore. It's expanded, so I'm not sure if it's even expanded even more. Honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to this going on forever. I love this world that she created and stuff, and I love being a part of it. I don't know. It's hard. Obviously, I would love, and I'm excited to see Bree come into her own, because you can see, like, how society pretty much, like, has shaped how she views herself. And it's so nice to see her break that and be like, I am powerful. I am all of these things that my friends saw in me. I just didn't believe it, and now I do. And I'm just so excited to see her come into her own, and what that means for her, and what that's going to look like. I'd love to see that. I'm super excited to see her relationship with Erebus, knowing that he's the reason all of this kind of, like, part of that happened, and kind of see that dynamic in that relationship, because, like, he is sworn to protect her as well, but knowing that, like, he's gonna kill her too, after, you know. So I'm just very curious to see how their dynamic is going to go, because I feel like, I'm not going to lie, yes, he is quote unquote the big bad. We'll see about all of that. I feel like, well, I don't know, but you can tell that he respects her, though. Like, the Regents had zero respect for her. Like, he genuinely respects her and knows how powerful she is, hence why he's protecting his asset, because it's like, she has the root in the Legendborn, the Arthur Scion thing going on, and he knows how overpowered that she is. And so I'm curious to see I'm curious to see how her relationship is going to change with Sel and Nick, because she kind of just yeeted Nick to the side, was like, I gotta do this thing on my own type thing. And, like, like, she was feeling kind of a weird sort of way with Sel, because it's like, she loves Nick, but Sel's pretty much given his life twice now for her. The reason why he is like this, because he saved her type thing. So it's like, I feel like she feels this obligation to try to help him out. So I'll be curious, like, Alice, what's happening? What's gonna happen to my baby girl Alice? Like, she needs to survive. I need her to be okay. Like, are the other Legendborns gonna, like, turn on Tor? Like, I'm very curious to see that whole dynamic, because, like, you can see, like, they didn't trust her with the whole Morgaine stuff. I'm, like, interested to see the whole Morgaine, like, that dynamic. Like, are we going to learn more about, like, what happened? Why were they lied to about the Morgaines and stuff? Like, there's just so much. I feel like I cannot predict anything, because like, she's doing such a good job, it's hard. I just need more of it. I know I want more of it, and I don't know. Like, those are, I don't even know if those are predictions. Like, I don't know if I have predictions. I just have wants and needs.
That's fair. That's
I
fair.
don't know about predictions. I mean, overall prediction, I think they are going to collapse the Legendborn cycle and they're going to learn how to end that. I am a little iffy because I feel like of our 3 main characters, I'm a little worried one of them will not survive of the trio. And I think Bree is going to survive. My issue is it's like either Nick or Sel won't. And I'm kind of leaning towards Sel. But I've also heard, because I guess people have asked her, like, oh, like, who's Bree going to end up? Do you know? And I guess she has not picked. She has not decided that. I think. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I was just reading online and stuff like that. So I would just be curious about all that. But I do think Bree is going to break the mold. I kind of, a part of me thinks maybe Erebus is going to help Bree and the Legendborn get rid of all the Regents. I kind of feel like it's going to be like the enemy of my enemy is my friend type thing, you know? And I think I can kind of see that happen where, like, he's gonna help them overturn the Regents, get rid of that, and then obviously it's not gonna be a betrayal because we know he's gonna do it, and then like turn on them type thing. But yeah, I think this is very broad predictions.
I mean, that's the last thing you said there is very aligned with the prediction that I was going to say earlier, and I'm going to say right now before my ADHD brain erases it from my head. I think that we might see Bree be like the chosen one, bring balance to the Force, to go back to Star Wars, and you know, she's got, because she has Arthur inside her, and then she also has the Shadow King Erebus has marked her, and so she's got both the top of both light and dark are connected to her. And it seems like it would be kind of interesting to see all 3 of those things, like Bree bring the Shadow King and Arthur together and bring the Morgaines back in, and like everybody connect and go against the Order. Because I think that not only because obviously Erebus and the Shadow King wants to topple the Order, but I think that Arthur, after seeing what these people have done to like what he started, and like the fact that they literally put him in chains and bound him, I think that Bree might be able to convince Arthur to come to her side too. And so not just her and Erebus taking down, I think Arthur might be part of that, but not in the same way. So there's got to be some balance where they figure out a way where Arthur wants to destroy the Regents and the political side of things, but keep the Legendborn intact. And then she'd also have to convince the Shadow King to not kill Arthur and all of the Knights of the Round Table, because that's kind of what they want to do.
Well, yeah, he wants to take over the Earth for
but
the
I think
shadows.
it'd be very, very cool if they find a balance where, or I guess a compromise, where they wipe out the evil within the Order.
What if we find out that like the shadow enemies aren't really bad? I don't think that's going to be the case because, like, you know, you have to, but I mean, they're just refugees, Michael. They're just refugees.
Might not be. I mean, there's 2 sides to every story, and we don't know that. Like, we don't fully know what happened between Arthur and the Shadow King and the Morgaines. And there's a lot out there to learn about.
I want so much. I want to learn all the things. Like I said, if she finishes the book series and then she wants to just put out like encyclopedias of like her world, I would eat that. I would devour it easily.
But that's my big prediction or hope. I think that would be so cool to see Bree unite the forces of good and evil against like the Empire, or like the true evil, that these people that have bastardized all of this raw power and stuff for their own gain. I think that both sides don't want that. So it's kind of like how you said, like, the enemy of my enemy,
right,
is my friend. And so we'll see what happens. Yeah. I don't know, but
so much.
Well, that is we got through all our questions. So now it's time to talk about our individual scores. Barbara, what did you give Bloodmarked?
I think this is my highest score. I don't think I've given any book a 9.5. I'm not really sure. I'd have to look back. definitely a 9.5. I can't. There's zero that I did not like about this book. Really, it's hell. It could have even been a 10. I think the thing I didn't like was that it ended, and then what happened to Alice. But outside of that, it's perfect. I absolutely love everything about this book.
So not only is this your highest score, it's the highest score ever given to a book by anybody on this podcast.
What, a 9.5?
9.5.
Yeah,
Nobody's ever given a book above a 9.
No, I was gonna say I think we tend to stick with the 9s because it's special to me. It's special, and so anything above a 9 needs to actually be worth it. And this book was it for me. So
that's fair. There you go. I gave the book a 9. I also really loved this book. Obviously, if you can't tell, we both really loved it. We've talked about it, and now we're excited to read what comes next, which leaves the group score for this one as a 9.25, which just barely edges out Bloodmarked as the highest rated book on the podcast. It was previously Legends and Lattes, which we all gave a 9. But yeah, we both really liked it, so that was our group score. Well, let's wrap this up. We've reached the end of this episode. Make sure you're following Badass Literature for free in your favorite podcast app, and give us a rating, leave us a review if they'll allow you to. Super helpful for us to help the podcast get seen by more people. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. Our handle is @BadassLitPod on both Instagram and Facebook.
Have feedback about today's episode? You can contact us by writing to badassliteraturesociety@gmail.com. You can also send us a DM or leave a comment on any of our social media handles. Don't forget that we have other social. You just said Instagram and Facebook. I thought we had more.
I did. I forgot to talk about Goodreads. We're on Goodreads as well now.
But anywho, there you go.
As always, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. My name is Michael.
I'm Barbara. Bye.
Bye.
13 years ago, monsters emerged from the shadows and plunged. I don't know how you pronounce her name. Kierce?
I think it's Kiersey.
Kiersey? I mean, the worst part is she literally tells you how to pronounce her name in like the second chapter of the book. And did I disregard that? Sure did. Because I had already started saying her name in my head a different way. And it's very hard to break that cycle, even though it's like 3 chapters in. So, my bad. Kiersey? You said Kiersey?
I think it's Kiersey.
Kiersey. Okay.
I think so.
Oh, Kiersey's whirled into a cataclysmic. What is how do you say that word?
Yeah, you got it. They end there. Cataclysmic.
Oh my god, let's do. And you said it's Kiersey.
Kiersey.
And it's cataclysmic. I feel like I'm saying
cataclysmic.
Cataclysmic. Kiersey. Cataclysmic. Okay.